gives me great pleasure to bring on Robin. Robin is a very active contributor of different posts and views in LinkedIn. So good news, you can check him out. And then, you know, have a little understanding about his thoughts and of course opinions. So Robin is the managing director and also co-founder of AGILE 8 Advisory, with more than 24 years of professional experience in both private limited and public listed companies, offering, of course, corporate secretarial services. We've got some common friends actually. When I first met Robin, and would you believe it? I don't know if this ever happened to you. When I met Robin, we sat down, okay, maybe not physically sitting down, but we chatted for, I don't know, how long was that? Over an hour, maybe even over 2 hours. And that was like our initial chat. He just has a lot of views. He is one person who's very approachable. Prior to running and setting up this company, he's also a deputy head of corporate secretariat in TMF. So for those of you who are in that space, you would know this organization. I've also had some dealings with them. And he has also spent 9 years in Boardroom as well, Boardroom Limited, whom I knew of the brand before actually interacting with them as well. And his experience spans across various industries, because when you do corporate secretarial work, invariably you will cut across many different industry. And what I like is cross-industry, multidisciplinary experience. And he's also had an in-house stint with DBS Group as AVP for the legal and secretariat department, naturally with very extensive experience there. I think, you know, depending on different sectors that you come and meet Robin, I am sure he would know someone there. Today, he's going to share with us his view on the common CV mistakes that job seekers may not be aware. I'm going to stop here and pass you over to Robin.
Yeah, thank you very much, Eileen. Yeah, it's always very hard to start after a great speaker like Eileen and also a moderator, because I think she kind of like covered nearly everything that I'm going to present. Yeah, but I knew, Eileen is good. Yeah, but I think important is that maybe I could just, if I could, maybe while I'm going to upload my slides, maybe Eileen, if you can, could you just upload my poll if you can?
Yep. Okay. I am launching the poll now. Oh, this is cool. You're my first speaker that kicks off with a poll. That's cool. All right. The poll is on screen right now. And the poll question is, what do you think that makes a resume stand out? And there are a few choices there: neat, colorful and nice design, clarity of experience, or what you can add. All right. What you can value add, okay, to the organization and to the role. And we've got 314 of us here on this call in this webinar. I can see over 60%, 65% of you have already given us your choice. It's good to see what everybody thinks, because the stats will actually show us, you know, what are the areas that we focus on, and it's interesting to hear what the speakers think. All right, because all of us are entitled to our views. 72% have voted. Robin, do you think I should close the poll? 73 now. Yeah, okay. So I'm gonna close the poll and share the results. Okay, over to you.
Yeah, hang on. Yeah, very nice, very nice. Clarity of experience. Yeah, so I think okay. Yeah, it's pretty much in line of what I actually have wanted to share today. I think a lot of resumes, I mean, that I come across is that they normally doesn't provide a very clear sharing of the experience. Okay, so why do I say that? Is that also partly because a lot of your experience is kind of like convoluted into a lot of words. Because a lot of resume that I see at the time is that you have a lot of experience, because every candidate tries their best to kind of like to put everything that they can into the resume. So it will end up most likely that it is going to be, I'll be lost for words. I mean, I'll be lost for the experience as well. I think the other important thing that comes to the job seekers, I mean, for you all who are using it, I think when you talk about neatness, I think that is very important as well. And I'm very glad to see some of you all mentioned that only a 3% said colorful and nice design. Yeah, I think it's not appropriate, like just what Arlene has mentioned earlier, is that unless you are into certain creative kind of companies or creative kind of experience, then you may want to showcase your colorfulness or maybe the design to attract and to kind of like show your what they call the creativity, right? I think there's also one last point which is also very important, is that what you can add. But a lot of times that we will always say that you try to actually put in a lot of information, right? But if you try to put in too much of what you can add at a certain point, it makes the whole story becomes very convoluted, right? It means very messy, okay? Yeah, so maybe Eileen, I can stop the share. Sorry, just a while. Can you see my screen now? Can, okay, good. Yeah, so what I'm going to do now is that I'm just going to be very quick. So because Arlene has earlier shown a lot of the good examples, so I'm trying to go as fast as I can so that we can take in more questions from you all, the participant today. Yeah, I'm so grateful to be here with Eileen and WSG. Okay, let's quickly go into my second page. I think one of the things that I kind of like wanted to highlight is that when as a employer, I mean, as a managing, as a director or just a manager previously looking at CVs, I think it may be very, it's common sense, I'm sorry to say, but the thing is that I still see there's a lot of this kind of like mistake being created. So the first thing is typo. What Arlene has earlier alluded to is that if the resume cannot be captured properly, I mean, cannot be presented proper with a typo or grammatical mistake, then as the hiring manager or myself as an employer, when I look at it, I will be kind of like, oh, okay, you are trying to show me that you are good at something. But even if, let's say, you couldn't even put through a clean and neat kind of like resume, then I'll be like worried, how could you then help me to do, especially in my field, we are in compliance work and we have to be very careful. Right. One of the things that I learned in my onset of my career is that I had my senior told me this. He says that if you cannot even clean your bed or sweep your floor, then don't bother coming to work. That was what he told me, because these are the basic, right? I mean, we brush our teeth, we wash our face and stuff. So I think if we want to try our best to gain the so-called the side of a prospective employer, is that then I think these are the little mistake which is very unfortunate that you shouldn't be doing, right? So it's not in a way it should not happen, right? Some, like I mentioned earlier, is being congested. Some, when I say congested, it means that because I know some candidates have very good experience. So what they do is that they kind of like put like the last 30 years or so kind of experience into a 2-page or 3-page. So they kind of like cram everything, uses the smallest possible font, right? And then they put italic. And then what they do is that they bold, they'll do underlining. So the whole resume becomes very convoluted and becomes very gaudy. To me, it's like, it's very mess up, right? So I think for those resumes that unfortunately, like one of the questions which earlier was asked in the poll is that these are the types of resume that we will not read in 100%, because it just kind of like makes the whole experience very difficult to kind of like to read through it. Okay, so that's the question that the thing I want to share. And there's some types which are very gaudy and colorful. I mean, I've seen many types of resumes who has a very nice creative arts to it. But what happened is that it comes out with a lot of design at the background. So what I mean is that, a white paper with standard font size, with the black writing, they put colors and they put a design, so you can see certain bubbles popping out, at the end, at the end, at the background. So it makes the whole reading also very difficult, right? Because what I want to see is your experience and what you have written, but not on the creativity side of you, because we can always go that. And after I've actually shortlisted a candidate for an interview. Right. So I think my key advice to the participant today is that importantly is just make sure that you read your resume 10 times if you can, just to make sure that it is not don't have too much. I mean, typo happens. I mean, I am human. I mean, we are all human. It happens, right? I mean, we can accept if it's 1 or 2, it's fine. Right? But what we cannot really take it is that when we see that there's just too much typo, and it is sometimes very blatant when you are copy and paste, right, or you cut and paste. A lot of times it's because there's just too much words, too many words, right? So you won't be able to do this so-called screening yourself or proofreading, right? So as a hiring manager, when we look at it and then halfway it gets truncated and then the whole thing doesn't make sense. So I think that is very important for participants to just take note, yeah? Okay, so I'm going to go to the next slide. Okay, so I think one of the key thing is that for the participants here is that you could actually try to get certain feedback on how you want your resume to look. Especially because as a human, I mean, I have my own set of resume, which I think was perfect at that point in time until I show it to my colleague. And then when she looked at it, she says, wow, why you go and put so much things inside, you know, or you put so much information as well. So because the time I was just started, so I was very young. So I mean, to put a quick note is that when you want to have a feedback, just break it down to 3 parts as well. If you are a new hiree, that means in a way it's a new applicant. So technically you just come out from university, or maybe certain education like O levels or whatever it is. Try to put a little bit more of what the achievement you have done in school. I mean, there's nothing else that you can actually put, right? So that's one of the type of resume which you should look at. There's also another type, which also Arlene has mentioned. So that's why I say it's very difficult to come after such a great speaker, right? So the thing is that you have a very long resume, but people with very good experience, technically you should also divide your resume to 2 types. One type is being what I call the brief one, which Arlene has mentioned. But this type of resume is meant for people that you know. So what I mean is that if you have friends who are already in a company and they say that, hey, come, Mr. A, can pass me a resume, let me give it to my hiring manager since they are applying. So I would suggest that if possible, give them the brief version so that they could quickly pass it to their boss and then they can actually quickly evaluate and hire you, rather than to give your standard resume, which is much, much longer, right? Because since it's someone you know, so the best is that you don't have to make the person read too much, because that person will probably also be your testimonial, your referee who can actually support your so-called application as well, right? So now I think come to the part is that when you have a resume, try to pass it on, even if you have ex-colleague or friends or family. I mean, like again, like I said, linking connection is very important. Or maybe even you could actually pass it on to an executive coach or a career coach or advisor who can actually help you kind of like polish it a little bit. When I say polish, it's not to put in extras and stuff, but I would just think that it's very good to put in certain keywords, like what I'm going to also put in, say at the next few slides. But I think the keywords are, for example, how motivated you are, what is your attitude towards the job, and what are the experience that you will actually bring to the table. So I think that is very important to have an independent person to look at the resume so that he doesn't kind of like think yours is always the best, or he provide, there's a biasness, you see. I mean, Eileen will probably agree is that, you know, human, we have bias, right? I mean, if I like you more, okay, I don't want to say so much. Yeah, just that make sure that your things is okay, you know, I make you happy, I'm happy as a friend. But that's not the way, you see, because when a person, I mean, a hiring manager, or when we look out for a resume, we are not your friends, you see, we still don't know you, right? So you can write as friendly as you want to, but we still don't know you. So I think having an independent person vetting it to making it more professional, I think it is very, very important as well. Yeah. Okay, so I'll go on to the next slide now. So of course, it is one of the best practice. Okay, for me, I would think that if you have a cover email or a cover letter, it is good, right? Because like what was mentioned earlier is that because as a hiring manager, we tend not to be able to read through the 10 or 15 or maybe even the hundreds. I mean, it's not like LinkedIn or Amazon like Arlene. You read practically thousands, I guess. But for us as just a moderate company, is that we read probably about 15 to 20 at times. So as far as I'm concerned, I mean, as far as my opinion is that I would prefer that if the candidate could actually write a very brief summary or in cover email, to say that what you can do. And then he could actually put into an attachment and say that, look, here is my summary, especially for candidates with very long working experience. You may want to put it as a bullet point, like what Eileen has earlier showcased. Put a bullet point as an annexure, and then after that you could elaborate a little more about what you can do, what is your how you can actually add value to the company and things like that. So it makes the whole reading very easy, right? And of course, the next thing is the how clear and the precise of the scope. So when you put in a resume, is that you try to showcase what you can do for the company, right? So technically, just to give an example, I think maybe example would be like if I have a candidate coming to me as applying in my corporate secretarial company, right? I mean, so they'll come with a resume and things like that. What I am looking forward to see in the resume is most of the time is that you tell me why are you leaving your previous job and why are you wanting to change to this job. A lot of resume which I receive, right, they always say that the reason for leaving is to enhance my personal growth or some very motherhood statement, right? Yeah, to pursue a greater interest. In this kind of case, right, technically we can't tell whether what is the real reason. So we will end up calling the referee. A good resume shouldn't allow the hiring manager to keep calling your referee, right? So what I've done is, just to share with you, is that when I first started, I've changed job many times, multiple times. And I explained to Eileen before, is that every 2 years, I try to change a job, okay? The reason, because I want to learn something new. So when I first started, I was in a small audit firm, small corporate sector company. I joined an audit firm, a local audit firm subsequently after 2 years. And then after that, I keep on moving into a international law firm, a local law firm, and then to boardroom, and then to TMF. So there is this progression. So every time there is a reason. So when I was in corporate secretarial function at that point, I say that I want to learn about audit. That's why I joined an audit company. Right? Yeah. I think
I'm trying to, oh, okay, so bear with me. I'm just going to mute everyone. All right. And then, but by doing that, Robin, you're also muted. So you
okay. Yeah.
have,
okay.
Oh, you're back.
Yeah. All right. Thanks. Yeah. So I think what I'm saying is that for every progress, the stage of progress is that you would want to tell your prospective employer is that I want to learn something. So eventually, as I would when I go to a local law firm, I say that I want to gain exposure in law. I wanted to entrench my technical abilities in legal understanding. Right, so that's where, and after when I go to the international law firm, I would say that I wanted to pursue an international law firm for the sake of, because I want to gain international exposure. I want to know how MNC work. I want to know how the lawyers work in an international firm. I want to get all those exposure. So technically, as I move on until I go to boardroom, I was very specific. I said that I wanted to learn listed companies work, corporate secretarial work, right? So that you can hand me as many as listed company as you want. I'm willing to go through the grind. So this is very specific to what. And then of course in TMF terms, I told them I wanted to do merger acquisition. So when I went to TMF, I was there to undertake a merger acquisition, which they had just completed by acquiring a local Singapore company. So I was there doing all this. So I think it's very important for participants here, I mean, to understand is that when you put in your resume, try to be more specific as your reason of leaving and wanting to come to the new company, right? Just don't put a generic statement or motherhood statement, because it really creates a lot of ambiguity. Because once I see like 5 of them is like always to pursue further growth, pursue personal development, then my next question will be, is this candidate leaving for the purpose of leaving, or because there's really a reason, right? Because when you have too many personal growth reason for departure of the existing, then we wanted to know more, you see, right? Also, just try to put yourself also in your hiring manager's shoes. So a lot of candidates, when I talk to them, they say that when you read at this resume, tell me, do you read this on my behalf? Have you read this proper? And then imagine if you were me, would you hire me, right? So I think it's very important for the resume to appeal to you, right? I mean, you look at it and just not a piece of paper for you to just email it out and then, okay, if I get it, I'm very happy. If I don't get it, okay, there's always the next time, you know. So it doesn't work that way, because a resume is what you are. It's basically the only piece of paper that tells you about who you are to your future employer. So that piece of paper is very, very important. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to go to the next one. Yeah. So, okay. So I think, are there any success story to learn from? My answer to a lot of people is, if you don't submit any resume, that will be the best resume. Why? Because it's
You're shocking them, you know, you're shocking them with that statement.
Yes, I'm shocking you. Okay. But I must qualify that, right? So the best way to go is always by word of mouth, people you know, people who trust you, people who has already heard you from the industry, right? People who has know that, oh, this Mr. A, I know he is a very competent person, he's very good in what he do. So you don't really need an actual resume, right? I mean, so what I'm trying to say is that because for me, I look at a lot of successful peers in my field. Whenever they were hired, they will never be measured by a resume, right? Partly because of the experience that they've gained, partly because of the exposure that they have, and also partly because it's the network that they know them, you see, right? So I can feel for applicants is that when you want to send a piece of resume, is that of course is to showcase what and who you are, but if you could, I mean, always try, once you get into a position and you work very hard for it, try to establish a name and try to establish a network or people, a group of peers that you can actually rely on. Because when they move on higher or they move to other industries or other companies, they will most likely to say, hey, come join me, come join me. So I think that is very important when applicants goes out and put in your resume. Okay. Yeah, so the keyword here is that it's a word by mouth better or having an interview. So I always believe that for every applicant is that if you could, after you have put in the resume, work as hard as you can, and then after that, establish yourself in the field so that everyone would know you. And when you put in your resume, it's always the brief form, not so much on the long form. Yeah. So yeah. And okay, I think this one, Arlene has already put it through as well. So it's the same point that we're going to put in, I'm going to put in. So I'm just going to say that we are now living in a digital world, right? So Arlene is correct. I mean, LinkedIn has done it, Facebook has done it, I mean, Instagram has done it, TikTok has done it. If you are on TikTok, I mean, for example, if you watch certain 10-second clips or maybe the 2 minutes clips, after watching it for more than 3 or 4 of the same kinds of clips, the rest of your content are very likely to be the same. There will be no other contents, right? So if you like to see animals, for example, the next, maybe the rest of the clips are all about dogs, cats, I mean, eagles, whatever it is. So likewise for Facebook, once you key in certain keywords or you are looking at tires, for example, I was trying to buy tires the other day to change. Then after that, every ad that I see was a tire commercial, right? To sell us tires. So I think even it's the same to apply to applicants, is that now, as in your resume as well, is that very likely in future, I mean, the future is not too distant. I think it's already here. AI is already here. So I think a lot of things will be screened using, preset algorithms, right? So I would just encourage that for those who, I'm also very happy to see those who has already, over the last 12 months, you have updated your resume in the earlier poll. So I think for those who have not updated it, do make sure that, I do hope that you could actually consider putting in certain keywords like how driven you are, for example, what is your purpose, right? These are all the keywords that the algorithm is going to pick up, right? Are you hungry for certain things? What is your desire? What is your motivation? So these are all the keywords that is going to be picked up in future, just like your SEO, you know, your digital marketing kind of stuff. So it's going to pick up the keywords and they are going to go and tell how driven is this candidates are. Right. And one last point to share also, I would think that updating in your LinkedIn profile for those who has not, I think it's very important for you to consider that, because LinkedIn is the official employer-employee platform, right? I mean, although Eileen may attest to it, I may share a lot of other things in LinkedIn, but the principle remains the same. It's my value system, right? So everything that I share on LinkedIn is my value system. So as a person, I mean, as a future hiree or as an employee, is that if you could go onto the LinkedIn, sign it up, it's very easy. Try to get some connection. You can hook up with some of us, right? You can connect with us. We'll be happy to connect with you. And very important is that there is a lot of things that you can learn from LinkedIn, even for resume, for example. Yeah, I mean, I've seen tons of resume kinds of experience sharing as well in LinkedIn, right? I mean, also there's a lot of motivation that they share. So I think just to highlight to you is that this is going to be very important milestone in your career once you send out the resume. So trying to get onto a digital platform is going to be the key to everything that we do in future. Singapore is going to be a smart nation. So the reliance on email, the reliance on attachment PDF is going to be very soon be, for example, out of fashion, right? I mean, I just had a coffee session with a connection, and he told me that he said in Apple, I mean, I'm not sure anyone is here has worked with Apple before, is that they do not use email, right? Because email is used by Google, it's controlled by Google's, right? By Microsoft. So in a way, they will use WhatsApp, they will use this Slack, which is owned by Microsoft, to communicate and send all the information across because they think it is more secure and safer. So I think the way how the world has worked, right, has actually moved beyond what our traditional way of doing things. So I was strongly encouraged is that as you draft your resume, the mistakes are very sometimes are always the simplest mistake. They kind of like kill off the whole interview. So just put in keywords and make sure that you read a lot for it. So I think, Eileen, that's my sharing. So I would
Very
think,
nice. I think you, yeah, cool. Leave that last slide.
yeah.
So, you know, we're going to encourage everyone to connect with our speakers as well, in terms of your connection.
Yeah.
This is not your last slide, right? Your last one has
It's last already. Yeah, it's the last. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
So, yeah, this one, yeah. Okay, so I think there was a question that was asked as you were speaking. Okay, I'm just gonna admit more people.
Yeah,
All right. The question is, I think maybe you need to explain to the audience a little bit more about the word of mouth, because word of mouth, yeah, I think that there was a couple of questions like, you know,
okay.
why isn't a particular individual not hired, or, you know, the older generation or mature workforce not hired despite word of mouth? Yeah, maybe you want to explain to the audience. Yeah.
Well, I think without any biasness or any I'm not trying to allude that about age, because to me, I don't believe in age is a criteria for hiring.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I must be very clear, right? I mean, in terms of word of mouth, is that sometimes word of mouth is useful if you're looking at certain position which has more openings.
Yeah.
Right. So certain times, if you're talking about word by mouth on certain key positions, then even you have word of mouth, but the hiring organization may have also other candidates to see, right? Because you are in a position of command, in a way, management and leading it. So I can only say is that word of mouth will work easier as you are climbing the corporate ladder, right? Because the position has more. So if I'm hiring more executive, I'm hiring more seniors, for example, assistant manager, it will be much easier if I could get word of mouth because I have that kind of position opened, right? But if you're talking about head of department, for example, or running as my deputy CEO, I mean, I only got one position, right? I mean, even my colleagues were to come to me and say, I know this Mr. A, Mr. B, or Mr. C, or whatever it is. I don't have that many positions open to that. So don't be disheartened if, let's say, even by word of mouth, you don't get selected, because certain times the criteria for employing a person has many facades. You see, there's a many facet to it. So it's not purely because of age or purely because of your gender or because of purely you're in a different industry or anything like that. It's just that it just happened that the opening may not be there at that point, and the opening may be just that one or two. So you are competing against many people. Yeah.
No, I remember when we first discussed, oh, so maybe you can stop share, then I can show them the link for everyone to download the speakers deck as well. So so here it is on screen. So everyone, you can actually just type link.artofcareer.com/the speaker's name. All right, and it's actually the same view format for the last all the other speeches as well. So you should be able to download their decks. For those of you who have been following and attending for quite some time, you will probably know the format. Yeah, I think back to my point, when I first met Robin, and he also mentioned that in the beginning of his speech, and he talked about, you know, the early part of his career where he was moving careers quite a fair bit. And I remember saying this to him. I said, wow, I think a lot of professionals will love to connect with you because you believe, you know, in hiring people who are really interested in their work and also having the right competency. And even if they bring in other industry experience, you are also open to meeting them, right? I think the question here that I see in the chat, which is related, is how can, you know, Penny actually asked this question, what should I do if I'm seeking a mid-career switch?
Very, very interesting question. I mean, when I look at mid-career switch, I mean, I did hire a colleague previously. She was in another sector, I mean, another industry. So she wanted to do compliance, right? And that time we worked with the Center for Seniors, the CFS, right? So I think that's where we work with. So we had this colleague who came in with a compliance background, I mean, with other industry background, but we hired her for compliance. And we found that even when you do a mid-career switch, right? It depends on the applicants, I mean, the person's attitude towards being open to learning.
Right.
So I think it makes the move very easy because whatever that we trained her was very easy because, okay, I must qualify this. The reason why it's easy is because we adopted a system, a KYC system, which is digital, right? So there's this digital process. So it makes the whole working process very segmentized, and she can actually follow step by step as to how to do it, right? So I mean, that is one of the examples which I'm sharing. But when you're talking about certain like mid-career switch, I mean, it depends on the spectrum that you are moving on. I mean, if you are from F&B, I mean, to do other things it may be slightly easier. But if you are talking about you're doing in an F&B setting, then you want to try to move towards a more technical side. Then the question that I will probably want to know is that what have you done to upgrade in the meantime, right? What have you studied? What have you pursued, right? So making career switch, I mean, it's a bit general to me, but we really need to know the underlying motive for that mid-career switch. During my times, people switch become teachers, right? People switch becomes on certain professions, right? So they switch halfway, they become a police as well. So they join the police force. So I mean, I met a lot of these friends and my ex-colleague who has actually changed. A very well expert, my senior, who became a teacher because she found that in the midlife she likes to teach, right? Instead of doing the work, she likes to teach. So she actually had that motivation to do it. So I would just strongly encourage that if you're thinking of doing the mid-career switch, don't just switch for the sake of switching, but find your passion in what you want to do. And then after that, find the necessary skills, the upgrading skills or the lessons that you can do so that it will allow you to make that switch much easier compared to just a statement to say that, okay, I'm in a midlife crisis now, I got to just make the switch. It's not that, I mean, to me, it's not that simple.
Right. Okay. So